بسم الله والحمد لله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Inshallah, my talk today will be about the virtues of our nightly ibadat, of Taraweeh, of Tahajjud. So the special character which distinguishes the month of Ramadan from the rest of the entire year is derived from the type of actions that we do during this month, right? Whether that be obligatory or voluntary. And so, as we have heard about the reasons why fasting is mandatory, as well as the role that it plays in building our character, we have pointed out that fasting has to do with the preparations of Muslims for the tasks assigned to them by Allah Azza wa Jal. And so, although fasting in the month of Ramadan is the main thing which we do, it is not the obligatory part. It is the only sorry about this. The mic went out. I'm gonna start back a little bit before. That during Ramadan, we have only the only obligatory part of it that we must do, which is mandatory, is fasting, right? However, there are many, many more aspects of our ibadat which we associate with Ramadan in one way or another, which contribute to its distinctive characteristics. And so every Muslim knows that emulating the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in any action that he did is strongly recommended. It goes without saying that some of these actions we must do since they are Islamic duties. What is not obligatory and has been done by the Prophet ﷺ constitutes a recommended practice which earns reward if done by any Muslim. When we look at what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did during Ramadan, we find that he was exceptionally charitable in this blessed month. And in order to appreciate his generosity, we need to remember that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the most generous of people at all times. He never hesitated to give away whatever he had, trusting always that Allah Azza wa Jal will give him more for his charity. And so in Ramadan, however, he was exceedingly charitable with no limits to his generosity. Moreover, our salah, which is the main practice of the Islamic worship, and indeed throughout our faith, receive even stronger emphasis during Ramadan. When we go anywhere in the world during Ramadan, you find that the mosque witnessed some very unusual activity in this month. The people gather for a late congregational prayer, which is offered after Isha, the night prayer, following the guidance of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we all know as Taraweeh. It is authentically reported that he came into the mosque one night in Ramadan and a group of his companions joined him in a congregational prayer. He did the same the following 2 nights, with the amount increasing every night. On the fourth night, the mosque was overcrowded, but the Prophet ﷺ did not come out. In the morning, when he came out, because he feared that this worship, that this ibadat might become obligatory on them, he wanted to keep Taraweeh a voluntary action. However, this indication is clear that the night worship, that the Taraweeh that we do during Ramadan is very, very strongly recommended. And so this understanding was put into practice by our second Khalifa, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He came out during Ramadan one night to the masjid and found that there were many people praying individually or in small groups. And he thought that it was far better if they joined together in one congregational prayer led by an imam who recited the Quran well. And so he chose Ubay. Ubay ibn Ka'ab, who was known to be one of the best reciters of the Quran amongst the Prophet's companions. And so this is how our Taraweeh Salah started in congregation. And so prayers and salah are a devotional practice which is described as an action which breathes life into our souls. This applies particularly to our nightly prayer. And so at night, the worshipper ourselves, we feel that we are much closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And why is that? This is not only specifically for Taraweeh, but Salah in general. It helps ourselves purify our souls and strengthen our resolve to fulfill all the duties that Allah Azza wa Jal has put upon us, especially in relation to the conveyance of the message to mankind. And so it is noteworthy that such long and late night prayers were obligatory in the very early periods of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ and his companions in Mecca were required to stay up nearly half of the night, every night, in total devotion of Allah Azza wa Jal. And after a couple of hours of sleep, they would rise and offer their devotion. They continued to do so for a whole year. Later, this obligation was relaxed and they were relieved of this duty. The action itself remains strongly recommended. It does not require a far stretch of imagination to visualize the strong effect that these Taraweeh prayers have in educating the believers and building their character. The self discipline involved, the feeling of closeness to Allah Azza wa Jal during these nightly prayers, and the acceptance of the supremacy of Allah Azza wa Jal are all important factors which help shape our character and which help shape our Muslim community. Therefore, our Taraweeh Salah were made in the formation period of the Muslim generation. When we consider the remarkable achievements of that generation, we have to remember that it was a generation molded by the Prophet ﷺ himself, and that the fact that the long hours were spent in worship every night was an essential element of that molding process. The fact that the obligation was later relaxed does not alter anything of the value of spending half of the night in honest worship. Indeed, Muslims have had to resort to this unique method to re educate themselves in their faith and to rebuild their truly Islamic character every time our character has weakened by any particular set of circumstances. And so, even till today, it remains as an invaluable training, which acquires for us the habit of opting for the hard but right course in preference to the wrong one, which may be easy, comfortable, or even enjoyable. And so there is no doubt that the month of Ramadan, with its strong emphasis on our Taraweeh Salah, in addition to the day of worship, fasting, enables us to maintain our ideological character in which type of Muslims we should be and how we should be acting in terms of our mindset, in terms of our goals, in terms of what we should be looking forward in this life and in the next. And it helps us on the standard of truth and to evaluate everything through that standard. Hence, when Muslims say that Ramadan is a month of endless blessings, it's coming from a personal experience because we see the effects of the blessings in our daily lives. It is only natural, therefore, that we always thank Allah Azza wa Jal for giving us this month of Ramadan and making it what it is in reality for our own benefit. And so in a hadith, it was narrated from Abu Dharr, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said concerning Taraweeh, whoever prays Qiyam with the Imam until he finishes, it will be recorded for him as if he spent an entire night of prayer. And this was narrated by Tirmidhi. This is a Sahih Hasan Hadith, and it was also narrated by Abu Dawood, and it was classed as a Sahih Albani. The virtue for the one who prays Taraweeh with the Imam and finishes with him. As the hadith states, the end of Taraweeh and its completion, at which the Imam finishes, has been defined by the Islamic teachings as being the Witr Salah. As long as the Witr Salah has been prayed, the end of the Salah is completed, and it is narrated in Sahih reports from the instructions and the actions of the Prophet ﷺ. It was narrated from Abdullah ibn Umar that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Make the last of your prayers the night witr, whether the prayer is directly after Isha or at the end of the night, in order to attain the value of praying during the last third of the night. All of that is prescribed." It is narrated that Jabir radiallahu anhu said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever fears that he will not get up at the end of the night, let him pray witr at the end of the night. And whoever is sure that he will get up at the end of the night, let him pray witr at the end. For praying at the end of the night is witnessed, and that is better." So therefore, if you're going to pray Taraweeh Salah, and you know you might not make it for the Tahajjud Salah, pray witr with the Imam at the end of the Taraweeh. However, if you know you will be able to make it to pray your Tahajjud Salah, you end off your Taraweeh Salah in two different manners, in which I will go ahead and explain. Whoever wants to pray both Taraweeh and seek more reward by praying Tahajjud, which is definitely something that we should all try to achieve, and this is something due ahead. The Prophet ﷺ said we should only pray witr once. And so how do we go about doing that if you want to attain praying witr with the Imam right after Taraweeh? Or should you wait and not pray it and pray Tahajjud? It was narrated from Qais ibn Talq ibn Ali from his father, who said, the Prophet ﷺ said, "There should not be two witrs in one night. In that case, that person has two options, each of which was the view of a group of scholars. The first option, when he prays with the Imam and prays witr with him, you may add a rak'ah so that it becomes even numbered. Then at the end of the night, when you finish your tahajjud, you may join the other and pray your witr then. The second option is that you may pray your witr as such, and when the Imam prays witr at the end of the night, you may either leave it and not pray with him during the Taraweeh Salah, or you may pray with him and add another rak'ah, so that when you pray your tahajjud at night, you're able to follow up with that one witr at the end of your tahajjud. And so the scholars differed concerning the one who prays witr at the beginning of the night, then prays qiyam at the end of the night. Some of the scholars amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ said, if he prays witr at the beginning of the night and then he goes to sleep, and then he gets up at the end of the night, he may offer whatever prayers he likes, but he should leave his witr as it was. This is the view of Sufyan al-Thawri, Malik ibn Anas ibn al-Mubarak, al-Shafi'i, and the scholars of Al-Kufa and Ahmad. And so this is all from the studies of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And these are just the virtues of what we can attain from trying to incorporate praying our nightly salahs, of our taraweeh, of our tahajjud, and all of our nightly ibadat that we do in between these times before we start Ramadan. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept our fasting for this first day that we have fasted of Ramadan. May Allah make it easy for us, and may Allah make it easy for all of the people around the world, especially those in Gaza. Ya Allah, make it easy for them. Make them have ease during this very, very, very difficult time, Ya Allah. And Allah, please accept all of our ibadat, all of our salahs, all of our du'as, and all of the actions that we try to do to make ourselves stronger in the way of Allah Azza wa Jal and in pleasing Him, and fulfilling all of our actions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.